All right, good morning, everybody. As we give folks just a few more seconds here to get connected, we'll go over some quick technical shenanigans, but I'm Amy from the Otsego County Conservation Association, and I'm your quasi-tech guru for the day. If you have any questions, comments during our presentation, feel free to use the Q&A, so use that question and answer button, or you can put comments in the chat. We'll be monitoring that throughout the presentation. And then at the end of our presentation today, we will be allowing folks to answer or ask their questions verbally if they'd like. And to do that, if you use the raise hand feature, what I'll do is in order, open up your microphones so that you can ask Troy questions directly if you'd like. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Wendy and we will get things rocking and rolling.
All right, thank you. Just good morning, everybody. I'll just reiterate, welcome to Watershed Wednesdays. I appreciate everybody joining. I will make the introduction quick this morning, but we're doing a series from August through October every Wednesday where we have a conservation kind of discussion, webinar, information opportunity. So the videos that we completed will be posted on the USC website. And all the work has been pulled together by the Education and Outreach Committee of the USC, including the Otsego County Conservation Alliance as well. I just wanted to welcome today, we're having a discussion with Troy, or a presentation by Troy Bishopp, USC Grazing Specialist, and also with Madison County Soil and Water. He's also known as maybe whispering to grass at times. But Troy is going to talk today about pasture water systems, and it looks like he's got a great presentation on talking to us about simple to complex and what could work on the farm. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Troy. Thanks, Troy.
Thanks, Wendy. Let me get this slideshow up. Welcome, everyone. So this is basically a pictorial presentation about some simple water deliveries on the farm to more complex. It really does go from kind of gravity to pumping. These are just examples that we've worked on. This isn't end all the be all, but I thought these were pretty poignant, especially now that we got tons of rain, humidity. We need to keep those animals hydrated and ourselves. So I've been doing this 16 years with the district and other districts. So the unique part is I get to put the stuff on the ground. I wouldn't say that I'm any kind of a designer. I have my own farm knowledge and things, but I rely heavily on our technicians at the district or other districts on seeing if the deliveries will work. Some are pretty self-explanatory and we just go and do stuff. The more complex ones, you need, pipe sizing, pump sizing, you have elevations, we have to do test pits and everything else. But I will say that we've been pretty successful at delivering water to livestock over the bunch of years. So this is the first one. You say, well, it's simple. It really is simple. There wasn't anything that we didn't use right at the farm, and the farmer wanted to deliver water to a paddock about 50 feet away, and he didn't want his cows in the stream. So we found, a blue mineral tub, got a trash bag, and I think that's a shower drain, and we piped the water, put some rocks, and it delivered water down the hill over to the cows away from the stream. Super simple. I think it might have took us an hour to dig a little bit of a hole. So that kind of shows you how simple things can get. Here's another at the base of a hill. Jerry Boyd and I, the farmer had said that this always is wet. So we went and there's a piece of shale there and we basically did the same thing. We had some pipe. We needed a catch basin and it flows all the time, made a hole, same type of thing. Super simple. We delivered water to a 300-gallon tank down the stream bed and out into the pasture. That thing worked actually better than some of the pumping things because it just keeps running. Generally, we put a float valve in the tub. So, you know, you don't want to drain things. So once it stops, it just runs over back into the stream. Super simple. Here's one that my dad and I did in our stream at the farm. I call it the $5 fix. And so the animals are fenced out of that area. And we basically did an in-stream type of thing. That thing has been in since, I think, 96. It's been through Katrina and, I don't know, Sandy and you name it. But when you're doing in-stream stuff, it takes maintenance. So you get sediment, rocks, twigs. So this runs our farm, our entire farm. There's 3 pipes that go to different paddocks, and the main line goes all the way down from the top of the farm to the bottom. And so 2 years ago, I updated it because things were rotting and it just needed an update. So what I learned at the district is, you know, put bigger rocks in, it had washed out. And I redid the box, but the design's pretty much the same, except that I got a piece of manure storage cover, or the what am I looking for? The pond line, the manure storage liner. So I lined the whole thing. So when the water goes over, it doesn't erode the area. Then the rocks just take the water back in. And so this morning it was plugged because we had 5 inches of rain last week, and there was apples and berries and a little bit of sediment and things. So it's not foolproof, but it delivers clean water where animals don't need to go to the tubs. So if you want to look at it, there is a $5 water system on YouTube. You click on that link there. Here's another one at the Glenwood Center down in Hudson area, the Hudson, New York. This is way up in the top of the watershed on a woodsy stream. So what they did is basically do what I did. They made a box. It was stainless steel with holes to screen, and then they put it to a tile. And believe it or not, at the end of this, it was 90 pounds of pressure. There was so much head pressure. They had to actually watch it. They had to step it down into the house because there's so much pressure from gravity. But again, every so often you have to go up there and clean the sediment, the leaves, and so forth and so on. But it's not anything anyone else couldn't do to deliver water. Here is one that we did. Again, it was a wet site, and I guess we had some. Those are 2-foot road tiles. If the farmer had a piece of it, so we basically screwed them together, put some fabric down, and filled it full of number 2s and 3s. And somewhere in the base of that, there's a pipe. 1-inch pipe that goes out to a tub. So again, really easy gravity. We can't forget, we can, you know, it's not against the law to water cows in streams, but we want to make sure that we have a reinforced crossing or something that, you know, keeps the mud away. So this was a concrete slats. So the approaches stay clean, and the water, that's a trout stream, that the stream can go through there and not be impacted by the animals. But it is it's important to note that the cows have limited access to that. Here's another one that we did, I think last summer. Again, it was a seep. There was a little bit of gravity, so we made a small pond, and then around the bend, we just put a pipe into it with a screen on it and delivered it maybe 100 foot down the way into the laneway with a tub. That was a USC project. We basically planted trees below this dam, little bitty dam here, and before the cows had access to it. So really, the cows were just drinking out of some muddy puddles. It wasn't great. I like these two slides here. Last summer during the drought, which we had one, the pond didn't overflow. That's what we were planning. And so we basically rigged up it was a 1.5 inch, or it was a 2-inch line. We put it down into the pond, and we rigged up this little siphon system where we basically pour water in and then get it all filled up. And then it went down over the bank into this 1,000-gallon tank and it could run over. And that's how we delivered water gravity wise. And then in the woods, there was, on the same farm, there was a seep and an old spring from almost 100 years ago. Again, cows were accessing it and we didn't want that. So we basically just hollowed out that below the spring, and just with the natural materials. And again, just made a mini pond that goes to a 1-inch line that goes to tubs with floats on them. So all have worked well. Most of us are familiar with, redoing ponds to hold water, fencing the cows out of it so they don't impact it. Again, these ponds should be a little bit deeper. They don't have to be huge. They just need to deliver water to a tub with a float on it. So with a float in it, you're not going to have a messy area. This one here is a tad bit bigger. It was a bigger watershed, and so we built a bigger pond. Again, cows are fenced out. There's quite a few bass in the pond. That's what the farmer decided he wanted to do. And that 1-inch line has a shutoff on the downside of the berm, and then it's delivered to several hydrants down through the pasture. This is another, again, not anything crazy complicated. It was a wet area that the cows would go into and make basically a mess. They would find some water. We got them out of there and buried a tank and covered it with fabric so that the dirt doesn't get into the tank. And then we fill it with 2s and 3s so it'll seep down through there, and then fence them out and basically bring it down the hill a little bit to a tub with a float on it. So the water stays clean. Cows, these were milk cows. They're a lot happier. Clean water. All is good. This was a project in Otsego County that we worked on. Same type of thing. The farmer identified a seep that's been there for a long time, and we basically, through, again, design, we basically put in spring rings, covered them with fabric so the stone doesn't get through the holes and the dirt stays away. And then we put a check dam and a curb stop to keep the water backed up in there, and then fill it full of rock so it seeps in there. And then what was interesting here was we had to go through a gully, and in the middle there you'll see a 1-inch line that we hung on high tensile wire right across the gully to keep the head pressure up. And that's my friend Bob Weaver that helped us with that, deliver water to the dairy cows. Again, I would say I hadn't talked about money yet, but we're probably talking in the vicinity of $3,500 to $4,000 for something like this. Here's another one that we did. Again, we tend to like to not disturb these old spring boxes that are just kind of leaking. Obviously, the cows had access to it, not great. Again, we basically bury some spring rings, put a check dam in, fabric around to back up the water, basically making a small pond, and then fill it full of cobbles, you know, sometimes we like to use material that's right there, but generally get some 2s and 3s that are clean. And so the water seeps right in from there, fence it out, and then deliver it to a water tub. What I will say about this picture, that water tub there was problematic because it's concrete, and when it freezes or the water stops for some reason, the ice jammed up and that thing basically disintegrated because of because of the ice. Basically broke out the concrete. So we're not that excited about those anymore. We'd rather have plastic. This is another project. This has been quite a while since we did one of these. Basically, we took an in-stream pipe to a set of spring rings, and then we delivered it down the fence outside of the buffer. And then we've seen this design at another farm that the water comes in, bubbles up, and then it goes out and goes to the next tub and the next tub. I think there's 4 tubs. So there's really no floats in there. It just delivers the water from the main and drains out. And then eventually it goes back into the stream. They're pretty rugged, but they definitely take maintenance. The problem with this one, the in-stream pipe keeps getting filled with sediment, and there's definitely a maintenance issue to the point where when the water stopped, again, the concrete breaks from ice. So we're, again, rethinking some of these practices because they're definitely not foolproof. So we're moving on to a little bit more complexity. Again, the ladies and gentlemen that I work with, they basically have a set of criteria, design plans. I kind of tell them what we're going to do, and they go ahead and figure out the head pressures, the size of the pipes, the pumps. We rely on our couple of our plumbing guys that are really, really practical, really good. And we're delivering water through a pump. And again, the more complexity, the more planning is needed, and we need to keep sizing things. We need again a lot more technical advice. And so far, I'm happy to report that everything that I've worked on regarding pumps and these types of issues, the math and the planning has worked pretty flawlessly, I have to say. So I'm very appreciative from the guy that puts the stuff onto the land. This is the same farm. Basically, we had a 350 foot elevation change from the bottom of the well casing all the way up to the top. And so again, most of the time these practices, we have to size up the pipe and upsize the pump to get less friction. And so a lot of times what we have to do is take in the barn, we have to basically step up the pressure to the pasture system, the water system, and then step the pressure down that feeds the barn and the house because you blow all the fittings. So there's definitely a plumbing component that we rely on our contractors to do, but generally things work pretty well. This one's a little bit different where we pump from a pond up 110 feet. Oops, sorry. So what we used there was a submersible that was hooked to a generator, and it was used basically once a week. So we pumped up to this tank that was mostly buried. It was a 3,000 gallon tank, and then it would gravity feed back down the hill to tubs in the pastures. So again, we fenced the pond out, planted trees, and then we needed to deliver this water up to this hill. Again, was all planned by my technical friends. This again, another way to do it. We basically put in a spring ring I think it was close to 3,000 gallons, where it was seeping out of the ground. We made a hole, basically a pond, and we did the fabric and everything else. And then we ran power up to it, and then did a pumping system right from it. This is generally seasonal. So again, it pumps, and I believe that was 1.25 inches we pumped to get to that elevation. Again, size of the pump, size of the pipe is very important, and the elevation change. So I believe Jerry Boyd and Steve Lorraine really did a crackpot job. I just laid the pipe, and I was there to see the fruits of their labor with the farm. This was another one, I believe this was 2 years ago, where we actually had to bore under the road, which was an interesting experience, because the supply was way better on the house side, so we buried under the road. We had a 350-foot elevation change. I believe that was 1.25 inches, a 1-horse pump. We had to step up the pump, which required different pressure settings. And so, yeah, there's usually I think it's a 40 to 60. We had to go up to like a 70, 90, because the lower part, the lower shutoff, we needed to bump that up to, I think, 75 to get it to start. Again, we've delivered this water up to hydrants in the pasture, and then we put a winter waterer up. You'll see on the right hand side there, for winter watering. I believe that just the boring was about $3,000 to get under the road and up. That project wasn't super cheap. I'm thinking it was close to $10,000 to deliver this water to the farm. These are a few alternatives. Rob DeCluse has used a nose pump right out of a pond to deliver water. There's definitely solar alternatives, although, again, it needs quite a bit of, technical, some planning, what size pump, what size solar panels. There is maintenance, definitely. Here on the bottom was a kind of an emergency water, where just the end of the pond, we put a fence there so the cows could at least get to the water, but not the whole thing. And then we've got the salty bathtub, and we wanted to deliver water down the hill, so we basically just hooked into some gravity water with a fern co and stepped it down and get to the tub. And then once the tub is full, then it just basically bubbles up out of the T there and back into the water tub. Again, trying to keep the cows out of the water areas where the springs and stuff are. Keep the water clean, keep the animals healthy. And now we're really doubling down now that grazers are starting to, move into fall and winter grazing. So we're definitely looking at, we've installed probably 5 or 6 of these co-bet waterers. So these can be pressurized or gravity, and so they use the heat of the ground. There's no power or nothing. The heat, and the co-bets we like because there's no concrete. These are earthen. You drop them in. They got a special set of plans. We've had really good luck with them, just because we don't have to do a lot of we don't have to concrete work. The other one there, the mirror founts or the Richies, they have ones that don't have power, and some do. Some of them require a concrete base, and if you're out in the remote areas, you got to have some kind of power to keep the heat to them if you want to do that. The problem is, as soon as you make a base, around the base becomes more muddy. You know, there's just more work, but they definitely do work. Here on the bottom, we're definitely have put in a couple, especially farmer-led designs. We've done loader tires now. We've put in 2 or 3 of those. We get some plans from the folks. A lot of those get put out in the West. I got plans from Missouri. Basically the same type of thing. You got heat from the ground, and then you cut out the web of the loader tire, and you have a float in there. So these winter waterers work, but they have to be sized correctly. So the smaller the waterer, the more the water, you know, the more the waterer gets used, and it brings in warmer water. That big loader tire, if you only have 40 cows on it and it's cold and they don't drink, then the more capacity starts to freeze. So it's kind of a, we'd prefer a smaller tank for more animals. It just keeps the water moving and keeps it unfrozen. So there's a little bit of design, or you know, what's the farmer going to use it for, and how much maintenance does he want to do. And then of course we have winter waterers, you know, that's the stream. And again, we want to have limited access, but we also want to fortify the banks and you know, provide clean water even in the winter without all the mud. So we've used various, you know, fabrics and slats, or there's some like honeycomb webbing to fortify the banks and keep the water flowing, but keep the animals just drinking and not wading into the water. Oh boy. So that's all I have. If you have questions or you need information on any of these projects, or you want to vet out a particular project, you could ask me, but generally I'll defer to the experts. But what I can say is this stuff is practical. I think we can solve pretty much all issues with a little bit of thought, and again, we try to go with what works. Lots of times folks want to create ponds and seeps and things like that, and actually by the time you get all done, it might be cheaper to pump it because it's a little bit more reliable. Test pits are really important, especially in August and September, to vet if that water will be good when you really need it. We've been in the situation where the farmer says, oh yeah, that never goes dry. And then we dig a test pit and in August it's dry. So it makes a big difference to, you know, do a little prep. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and go back to Amy. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Troy, for some great projects to see. We didn't have any questions. So what I'll do is I will share the information for next week's, our first September Watershed Wednesday. But if you have questions, there's still a chance to pop them in the chat. So next week, we are going to be talking about buffers and BMPs in small agricultural watersheds. And we are excited to have our next presenter. So I think with that, like Troy said, if there's any questions, feel free to connect with him directly. But thank you so much, everybody, for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you. Have a great day.